Hello, how's it going, y'all?
Hey.
We love you
Oh,
too,
wow.
Ty.
Oh, don't stop it. Stop it. I'm so
Texting
privileged.
screwed up.
I'm so excited to not only get the opportunity to talk about, like I mentioned, one of the most important aspects of comics with you guys, but also with a pair of creators who have really just learned by doing. So I feel like you guys have just such a dearth of information on this topic that I think that your perspective is going to be so valuable, because unlike some of the other creators that we've talked today who are amazing, they've been doing this for a while, and it comes with ease sometimes to fund those projects different ways. But crowdfunding is something else. So we're going to get into it, but before we begin, I want you guys to properly introduce yourselves, please, to the folks at home who may not be familiar with you. Who are you guys?
For sure. So first, of course, I'm Lloyd.
And I'm Natosha.
We're Midnight Comics, Atlanta's first and largest Black family-owned indie comic book and manga publisher.
Absolutely. Period. Succinct. You guys want to flex a little bit of your books? What books you got? Don't worry about it. I can flex it. They got soul. Maybe they got a little soul to them. Oh, you guys have a book that's on Kickstarter right now.
Right now. Yep. So the Gray,
Gray issue 3.
Yep. Which y'all, was blown out of the water essentially the last Kickstarter that we did for it. So it was just like, all right, next one's done. Thanks to, again, that crowdfunding that we'll talk more about in a little bit. But yeah, we have Soul, the Gray, Admani, Blue Morpho, Last Day, Dogma, Raven Zobin, Unbeloved. Those are all the ones that are out.
Yeah. And then there's others.
And technically Tales from Midnight 1 and 2, but yeah.
Those just have those titles inside.
Yeah. So quite a few titles.
Absolutely. Diving right into crowdfunding, for those who may not be familiar, because I know we dropped the name Kickstarter, but do you guys mind actually explaining to the audience what crowdfunding is?
Yeah, it's essentially, whether it's Kickstarter, Indiegogo, heck, even, you see stuff like GoFundMe's, right? Where, you're asking friends, family, community, right, for assistance to bringing a project, whether it's a project to life or helping you pay a bill or something, right? If you include the GoFundMe and stuff. But it's just really that kind of community effort, just coming together and using those platforms to bring whatever you need to life.
The crowd is funding the project.
So some you may or may not be familiar, the audience watching. There's a couple of different crowdfunding platforms. We already mentioned one, Kickstarter, but I believe there's also Indiegogo as well for comics as well.
Yeah, and Zoop's another one that's newer.
But Zoop also does your fulfillment as well, I think.
Oh, I don't know.
I think
we've never used that one, but Zoop is out there.
Who've used it.
Indiegogo is different from Kickstarter. If you go that route, Indiegogo, you get charged immediately for that one, and it automatically goes there.
Whereas Kickstarter, you pledge, but it doesn't take your money until the campaign is over
and funded. Yeah. So it's an all or nothing, as they say on their website. It's an all or nothing situation, which personally is definitely the preferred. You want to make sure that you make the money right fully for most people. They use that money to complete the project. In our case, we kind of invest, right? We invested our personal money first to get it done, and then recoup on the Kickstarter, and then let that circulate into the following books. But if we didn't do the all or nothing, right? I think personally we like the all or nothing, because it's like guarantees. Okay, we got it. It's done. You don't have to worry about, nothing happened into your project. It's done, right? So
it also helps gauge interest. It's like, if I fund, then you want the next one. So let's keep going.
Right.
And just for clarification for our audience, the difference between Kickstarter and Indiegogo, just for a little bit of clarity, is Kickstarter, as Lloyd had mentioned, all or nothing. So you pledged at a certain level for the project that you want to back, and you give your money, they hold it for you. If the project is successful, they take your money, and if not, you get your money back, but the creator doesn't keep anything. And on something like Indiegogo, whatever you put in, the creator gets to keep, but also if they never complete the project, well, you also don't get your money back. So it's a little salty. So we've talked about just the different crowdfunding projects and just kind of what the aspects of those platforms kind of look like. But let's actually talk about, how do you approach crowdfunding as a way to fund your books?
You know, it's crazy being on this side of the conversation because I remember we were the ones always asking, like, what does it take to do that, right? And
we actually had to be convinced.
And we did have to be convinced to actually do it in the first place, right? But the biggest thing is growing that community, growing that mailing list. Like that, you have to gauge that interest first, right? Because otherwise, you know, you kind of you're just screaming in a crowd, right? And there's already a bunch of noise happening. You don't know anybody, nobody's there yet. So like bring people in and let them also kind of be your advocates, right? So that when you do finally say, hey, this is out or this is coming out, you already have that group that's already like, oh, I want to see that. I should tell my friends and family that you guys should want to see this as well.
Emphasis on the mailing list too, because while social media is great and there's the work behind it once the Kickstarter starts of reaching out to people individually and all that kind of stuff, social media algorithm is getting worse and worse every month, I swear. With every update, the algorithm is more against you and doesn't let anyone see your stuff. So the mailing list is so important because that's where you have a direct line to whoever it is that is in your readers. Like you want them to be able to see what it is you're posting, saying. So that building up that mailing list is very important. It's probably the most important thing when it comes to marketing. And stuff like that.
And just to piggyback on there, as you're building that community up, whether it's the mailing list, whether it is the social media, taking them on the important thing of doing that is taking them on the journey with you, right? In our early days, if you would, right, it was a lot of, hey, here's a sketch of this character. They're going to do X, Y, and Z. What do you think of their design, right? And so as they're giving feedback, as you're building your community and fans and stuff, they're giving feedback like, ooh, you know, I imagine they're doing this, that, and a third. Are they going to do this? And all you're doing is just kind of continuing that building that rapport, right? That back and forth, like, oh yeah, I plan on doing something like that, but you know what? I like that idea. Oh, you see, you're not feeling the armor or something like that. What would you do, right? You know, and getting that feedback, like, okay, yeah, there's room for improvement. You know, are you making characters, right? And just that kind of engagement, and again, making everybody feel involved and part of was very, very important. And so even down to when we did Tales 1, we didn't do a Kickstarter for that one. No, we didn't do a Kickstarter for that one. But what we ended up doing is we reached out to the folks that did buy it and say, what was your favorite stories? Right? Soul and the Great ended up being the favorite stories. And to this day, those are the stories that we focus on because that's the one that's out there. Now, Tales 2, we did the same thing, so on and so forth. So that when those stories start rolling out, you know, at least the fans at the time, those were the stories that resonated with folks. And so now it's all right. Because we got a lot of titles. There's a lot of stories we want to work on. But understanding that community and the rapport that you built with your fans and stuff, that's the key. So those are the things that you would bring to like your crowdfunding and stuff. So
real quickly, do you mind actually defining what a mailing list is? Just in case there's questions about that.
Yeah. So essentially you get folks emails, right? Whether you go to a convention or anything like that, or meet them at a pop-up shop and stuff like that,
even website
or on your website, right? You're essentially gathering emails. And then for us, we utilize Wix, and they have a built-in mailing list system in which with those emails, you kind of send periodic updates in regards to what you're doing. Again, keeping them on that journey with you, right? And maybe giving even some more insider knowledge into regards to what you're working on that you're not doing on social media. Again, you're bringing them into the family, right? So yeah, that mailing list is that direct line via email to continue engaging with your community.
So it's like when your favorite store sends you that email to let you know they have that 50% off sale going on, and you're like, ooh. We try to also, you know, bring you on the journey and not just throw coupons at you every 5 seconds.
Right.
Absolutely. So we've covered so far just what crowdfunding is, kind of how you guys approach crowdfunding. Let's talk a little bit about some of the difficulties that come with using a crowdfunding platform. We touched on it just a smidge earlier with Kickstarter, but do you guys mind going into some of the difficulties you've faced or some difficulties that new creators might face when using a crowdfunding platform?
Yeah. The lack of understanding of the platform right now, at this point, a good bit of people know what Kickstarter is, but again, whether it's new creators, we didn't know. We'll use us as an example. I didn't know what Kickstarter was initially, right? Until we saw a bunch of Kickstarter campaigns as we started to learn about essentially the field we were about to dive into, right? So there's a bit of ignorance to it because it was like, I got to pay all this money now. You know, I get paid next week. Oh, I don't have to pay up right now. Okay. Right. So the difficulty is that I feel like is the case is one, there's a slight lack of understanding on how that process works. Like, I'm not looking to put a bunch of money into a book that I don't, second problem, that I don't know. I don't know who they are. Right.
Mm-hmm.
So there's still that goes back to that original, try to build that community and reach out to them first, because some of the difficulty is there's a bunch of stuff on Kickstarter, right? That people aren't just going to, even if you're a project we love, there's plenty of those on there. It's still difficult to find you, right? So it's not just a, hey, front page, I'm here. You have to try to get people to go to a site that they may or may not be familiar with and say, hey, pay this money, but don't worry, it's not going to charge you right now. But it's a lot of information, I feel like, that makes it kind of difficult to convert at times, right?
Mm-hmm.
Now, of course, you do have that crowd that is very familiar with that, but now how do you still reach that wider audience? I think it goes back to our first points. But yeah, I think mine was the difficulty, not understanding the platform, and then just being able to find somebody just organically on there, I think. Is kind of difficult. Yeah.
I had only heard of Kickstarter before we started seeing people post their Kickstarters. I actually knew more about Indiegogo.
Right.
I don't even know how I found it. But yeah, it was a process to learn about it. And of course, even though we've done well, sometimes getting the funding to happen is the difficult part, because you still have to reach out to people. People aren't just gonna see that you're running a Kickstarter, even if you promote it for months in advance sometimes, because again, the algorithm.
Oh, no, go ahead. I'm sorry. I remember what else I was going to say, but you said it. There you go.
Oh, did I say it?
Yeah,
okay,
go ahead.
Cool. That works.
I didn't mean to interrupt you.
I was done.
Okay.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. I feel like you mentioning that Kickstarter, despite it, like, I feel like because we're in the comics community, Kickstarter just feels like very, very familiar with us. It's like, oh, it's nothing to go onto that platform. But I do remember the first time I ever backed my first Kickstarter. It was kind of nerve-wracking. You put your card information, they say they won't charge you, and then also sometimes you kind of forget about something, and then they a month later they just pull the money out of your account, and you're just like, where did this money?
Mistakes were made.
That's another aspect. I don't think we've touched on it, but Kickstarter has a time frame. Is that correct?
Yes. So you can do, I think it's anywhere between 6 or at most 60 days. I think it was maybe longer.
I think I saw someone run a Kickstarter longer than that.
Well, yeah, they do have a max date, if I'm not mistaken. But yeah, usually on average, you see, at least in the comic side, you mostly see people run the 30-day, the month-long Kickstarters. Some people experiment to do a bit shorter ones. We definitely do as well. Yeah. So yeah, there is a time frame. There's a time frame in at which when the Kickstarter ends, regardless of the date, you know, when it ends, that's when you're charged, right? So I think there was something else, and it just anyway.
It's no problem. If you think of it, let me know. Totally.
Will do.
Other than just your Kickstarter getting funded, or your goal for any crowdfunding platform you are using being completely funded, what is the marker of a successful Kickstarter for you guys?
Being able to fund the next book and successfully print out, of course, and get to everybody the rewards, right? So what now? Yeah, that's been the biggest thing. But then more recently, it's like we also got to learn that we wrote this. It took time. We should pay ourselves from this, right? On top of that, right? Not just enough to pay the artists and the letterers, right? But also be able to pay yourself with, you took the time out, right? You took the time out to create, research, so on and so forth. So for us, that's why we've actually increased this one, was to, okay, let's make sure that we get ours, the artist gets theirs, the letterer gets theirs, and we make sure all these rewards and stuff go out. So we price or put the asking price, if you would, of the Kickstarter down accordingly to make sure that all of those things are covered, with including any potential like surprises and stuff, and do it that way. So if we're able to check all the boxes on that, it's a good day.
Let's see if we remember to do that, because we still never remember to do that.
We still never remember to pay ourselves, but the projects get done. The projects do get done. So
without coming out of our pocket at the very least.
Right.
Other than just building your community and, of course, talking to your community, how else do you build trust with your consumer on a platform like Kickstarter? I know that you guys are familiar for this, but maybe our audience isn't. Sometimes when Kickstarters get funded, another reason why people are a little bit sketched out is if they fund their project, sometimes books don't get delivered, or those goals are met, but you might not receive the product that you funded. So how do you guys build trust on your side using a crowdfunding platform?
Yeah, consistent updates. We update. We still use even our first Kickstarter. So here's the thing with Kickstarter, you can still do updates well after the Kickstarters have ended. I think that Unbeloved campaign was about
free mailing
list. It's a mailing list in and of itself, because some people only support via Kickstarter, right? We have a good dozen, maybe more, that do not visit our website. They only go to the Kickstarter, get everything that they don't have, and that's it, right? And so consistently updating, even for our latest one, we reached out on the first one, right? Because some people were only into one or two stories, not all the rest of them. You're still keeping in contact. But through that, again, you're also keeping everybody that's backed informed in regards to what all you're doing, right? So
yeah, in constant communication when people reach out individually as well. And so now that we are six deep, now we've built that trust because all of our Kickstarters have been fulfilled.
Right.
And usually within a few months.
Right.
So now that we're at that point, it's like people can say, well, I've always gotten my books from them on Kickstarter. So even if something happens, it's like, well, something must have actually happened.
Right.
So I know I'm going to get my stuff.
We do milestones all the same, right? The same thing we did in the beginning when marketing on social media. It's like, Prince just got in, take a picture of it, send it in the update, like, I'm holding your copy, and it's just like, all copies are going out on X date, or, I just got this email from the printer, or so on and so forth. Every time we hear something new, we try to update and say, hey, it's coming, or hey, this is where we're at in the process. Especially again on Kickstarter, they have the survey section, right? And so on there, of course, you're gathering whether it's the email address, the address to send the books and stuff. And so if there's any hiccup, like if you talk to the printer, it's like, hey, did you get your book? I didn't get my book yet. No problem. And now it's a personalized message. No problem. Let me see where you are in the status, right? Or, you're missing something. Say less. I'm gonna go ahead and do. There's been two. I think on the Soul campaign there was 2 books that didn't get to them. They did the whole collection. It was just like, I have those copies right now. Here they are. Picture with it. I'm sending it, and then I'll also send the tracking number, right? So it's those constant kind of updates because I know what I would expect. Right, if I didn't get something or if I was waiting on something. So if I know to expect it, why am I not, I need to take that into consideration for anybody else, that's supporting and purchasing from us.
And including a tracking number is a good CYA too, to make sure that people know that you did what you're supposed to do.
Right.
Absolutely. I think that's a good point, of like that consistency of keeping up with your audience. It also kind of benefits you as like a community building aspect, would you say?
Right. Yeah. Absolutely. Absolutely. Oh, I did remember, I don't know if we're on this point yet, but the other ways to kind of market yourself during the Kickstarter and get that kind of exposure out there. One of the biggest things, make sure that you're getting on shows. Right,
run the media circuit.
Run the media circuit and gauntlet, right? We in the early days we ran into we Blurred's Eye View, Room Full of Blurs, kind of adjacent, if you would, Pop Culture Kaboom, all these different shows, right? Heck, we've been on your show, right? So like it's getting on there because you are meeting or having the opportunity to engage with an audience that you might not have seen or might not have reached without that other person, right? I think about that like with Twitch, right? Like, okay, well, the raids that they do, right? Where it's like, oh, you can raid another person. It's like, oh, well, who's this person? Oh, well, this person likes them, then I might like them, right? Because I like their stuff. So kind of same concept, right? Where again, just you're meeting new people, there's new exposure and an opportunity to kind of convert them and have them be your fans as well. So anyway, I couldn't remember if that was something for earlier, but yeah.
No, that's a totally important tip to definitely put out there, is marketing yourself in that way. Now, you guys have definitely been in business for a while. You guys have been had multiple successful. I don't think you guys have had a failed Kickstarter, have you?
That's it. I haven't
Not
said that yet. Like that. Hey, yo. No, we have not.
No.
Which is an amazing feat, because I know sometimes, especially early creators, sometimes their Kickstarters do fail. But at this point, I know you had mentioned that you also have funded books without using Kickstarter. Do you have a preference between running a book through Kickstarter or running it just as like a pre-order or just traditional orders? And if that is the case, why would you choose one or the other?
I feel like we have different opinions. You go first.
You go first.
No, go first.
I go first. Okay. I personally would love to be able to do straight to website. Okay. Kickstarter, of course, as with any platform, there's caveats. So Kickstarter does take a percent, maybe like two separate 5%. Like it's not like a full just 10% at one time. It's like two separate 5% that they take. And so, of course, we're trying to get get people to Kickstarter, but it would be wonderful to have everybody just come to the site and try to develop something there where it's like just pre-order straight from the website. And now you're on the website, you're on the mailing list, you're getting the frequent updates, you're living there. However, right now, same issue like we talked about before with who are you, right? For you to trust literal us, right? Kickstarter, you have millions of verified people and successful Kickstarters. You can say, okay, this is a trusted source. Midnight Comics and Kickstarter, two completely different platforms. I don't know you. Chances are I know Kickstarter before I know you. So I would prefer to be able to do that. But at the moment, I think Kickstarter has been the absolute best when in regards to being able to fund a book in what we do 15 days. And I think only our first one was the full 30 days. But 15-day Kickstarters, here it is. And we did two. That was that. No. Tales 2 was only 15. That was the one we tested it out on. We was like, no, you're right. You're absolutely right. Because we were Unbeloved and Tales 2, we did 30 days. But ever since our third one onward, we did 15 days on there and just, took off. But yeah, I think that's the preference at the moment at not necessarily necessity, but it's what works best at the moment as we continue to kind of build rapport and navigate this hostile algorithm, if you would, because it made me tear us up.
No, okay, yeah, you said what I was going to say, but with different words. I would definitely prefer things on the website. I think it's more than just the algorithm. Of course, it's also things like learning to do better SEO, learning to better promote the website and get those website sales and stuff like that. So, yeah, no, what I was going to say with different words. So.
As we'd already mentioned, you guys have had multiple successful, I think 6 successful Kickstarters at this point. Also, you guys have been in business for a while. Comparing your first Kickstarter to your current Kickstarter, what were you say are some things that you have learned over your time using the platform?
We know the stories that people want the most.
I was about to say people like the comics over the manga.
Over the manga for sure. But that's, again, I think the marketing.
But also we could market the manga
better. So the problem is, because we do comics and manga, the problem was we really wanted to do the comics, right? But we found the artist for the manga first, but we had done all of our marketing to folks that are more into to American comics. So, that first Kickstarter, again, we were still building rapport and learning. We got that amount in a day on this one versus it took the whole 30 days for, you know what I mean? So just learning, again, what do y'all like and how do I cater? Like, technically we have 2 different audiences, right? So trying to figure out how to cater to each one. And of course, what story to focus on, right? Based on the current engagement is definitely one of the biggest things that we learned for sure. Did you have anything? Oh, okay. Okay.
No problem. coming around to some of our last questions here. Now, we've talked a lot about Kickstarter because that is the platform you have the most experience with. But when it comes down to platforms like an Indiegogo, I know we had mentioned Zoop. There's a couple of other ways to fund projects. Why do you consistently choose Kickstarter over those other platforms? I know we touched on it earlier, but what keeps drawing you back to the Kickstarter platform?
Funny enough, I think it goes back to what you said about people trusting Kickstarter over our website, even though I personally just think they haven't found the website and we haven't promoted it enough. But trust. Kickstarter is a site we trust. I think if there were another one, Indiegogo, but the way Kickstarter works better for us. The interface is more user-friendly, and just most people know if you're looking for comics or looking to fund comics, Kickstarter is where comics usually go. There are comics on Indiegogo, and of course Zoop is literally comics. But for the most part, Kickstarter is where people go when they want to fund comic books.
That's what it does feel like. Now, at this point also, because technically we've, for lack of a better word, I guess, we've built a community there, right? Because again, there's people that only back or purchase our items on Kickstarter, right? So at this point, it'd be kind of a mess to, hey guys, see you later. We're going to Indiegogo to try to build something new. And then you kind of lose that kind of the engagement and kind of faux mailing list that you get through Kickstarter, right? You know, and what would that look like? Like, hey guys, thanks for backing all of our previous Kickstarters. We're moving to Indiegogo now. Like, you know, so at this point, it's like, no, unless something drastic happens, just this platform has continued to work. And again, how it works in regards to the all or nothing thing, personally, I think we feel way more comfortable of if it funded, all the money is right there. It's going to get deposited 14 days. I think it's 14 days. Yeah, 14 days after the Kickstarter ends. Once it's in, all right, next book, printing, you know, whatever, you could send all of that out. It's done. I don't want to play with people's money. Indiegogo, it's like, oh, you sent $5, you sent $10, and then all of a sudden, hey, time to pay for your website. Oops, right? Oops. And now I'm missing $200-$300 from, you know what I mean? If you know, whatever the case is, but
and it's that same thought process people go through when there's a new social media platform. It's like, but see, I built an audience here,
right?
I don't want to move.
Don't start over
over there,
right?
Absolutely. I'm going to ask this question twice, but we'll start from simply as a consumer, someone who goes on to Kickstarter. What is your favorite aspect of Kickstarter as somebody who uses the platform, someone who supports other Kickstarters?
Honestly, I like the mailing list thing because if I'm going to miss it on social media, I'm going to if she was not here, social media would not be a thing. I would miss social media. I'll doom scroll. Don't get me wrong. I will doom scroll, but I don't see nothing. You know what I mean? So otherwise, I would not see half of the Kickstarters that I backed outside of those messages. And there's a couple stories. Oh my God, there's a couple stories on there that was just like, because I went to the mailing list thing, not mailing list thing, but responded to the Kickstarter. They're like, oh, they have this going on. Clicked on that link, and then it shows you those other books and stuff. Like I think towards the bottom or what have you. And it's like, oh, okay. So now I'm being back introduced into the ecosystem, sucked into the ecosystem, and buying a lot of books. So yeah, I think that mailing list option helps drastically, and personally, I like it for again consuming new comic books.
Yeah, I was gonna say that front page is very it's like, ooh, that looks interesting. That looks interesting. And now I've got 5 Kickstarters saved.
That's how we came across that B Mecca. Like I was scrolling through a completely different Kickstarter, right? And then it was suggested or whatever. It was like, okay, well that looks interesting. And as you know, we definitely ended up buying it. So that mailing section.
Yeah, I actually think that's probably the best part about Kickstarter, as it has this like great community ecosystem. As you guys had mentioned before, there are people who just buy comics on Kickstarter. That's all they kind of do. There are people who I like to call them Kickstarter hunters. All they do is sit on Kickstarter all day and click back. That's all they do is just look for new projects to back and look for new comics to back on Kickstarter. And also it seems like Kickstarter itself as a platform is really into supporting the creators on it. If I'm not mistaken, you guys have gotten the little Creators We Love badge at one point. Do you mind describing a little bit about that, or what that actually does for your particular account, or for the Kickstarter campaign that you're running at that time?
Just because it was my book doesn't mean it works differently. But anyway, yes, that was actually for the last great Kickstarter. So the projects we love on Kickstarter gives you, first off, Kickstarter will on their social media platforms promote your project. It also puts you on the front page, which means now more people will see you. And of course, you also get the cool little sticker to put on your stuff to say Kickstarter projects we love.
That goes back to that visibility like she was talking about, where it's just like initially like, how is just random people that I haven't met already going to find me? They do that and it's like, well,
they'll be seen by more for sure.
Right.
Now, that's not to say you have to have a Kickstarter projects we love badge to be on the front page, but if you have that, you're definitely going to be on the front page. You can get on the front page without it.
Okay, that's pretty cool. We've talked about Kickstarter at so many different points. Like, honestly, I'm sure we could go into like miles of other Kickstarter questions, but I think the last question I'll ask you is, if you were to kind of start your Kickstarter journey all over again, maybe you were funding that first project from scratch with all the knowledge you have now, how would you approach doing a Kickstarter now with that knowledge if you were doing your very first?
Not be so fearful, and market way better. Because again, we marketed all the stuff that we had going on with our comic books, but didn't really do as much with the manga. And then again, that media circuit situation that we talked about, right? People are looking for guests, right? People are looking, because much like you, right? It's just like, hey, there's new stuff out. I want to know what else is out there. What's all the cool stuff? So find them, right? It's kind of a symbiotic relationship, right? So I would definitely much sooner not been as scared and marketed the heck out of it, and made sure to build up our manga community at that point. So I think that's that for me. I think that's definitely it.
I would charge more.
That's fair. That's fair. We didn't know in regards to charging for the products, we didn't really grasp, especially in that first one. I don't think we were able to get. We had already paid for the next book to get done, but we didn't charge the right amount
to
recoup. Right. So technically at first Kickstarter, although on Kickstarter successfully funded, in comparison, of course, of what we spent, no bueno, right? So, doing more research, I guess, and asking more folks about their experience on Kickstarter or crowdfunding and building an audience. I think that was key.
We say more folks, knowing that we asked quite a few folks.
We did.
We still would have asked more folks.
We still would have asked more folks. Yeah. And that's the thing we have learned throughout this entire journey is just not being afraid to say I don't know and going to people that do know. And if they're willing to share, man, having that knowledge going into any endeavor, right, has been absolutely fantastic. So yeah, just ask the questions, get on the media circuit, and really take into account what it is you spent, right? So that you
need to spend, or if you're a page and a promise kind of person.
Oh, as we page and a promise. Yeah, we call it a page of the promise. When we were doing our initial research on Kickstarter, we saw a couple. There was, what was it called? The bone, not the bone collector, but the bone something. And she had a couple character designs, a page or two of the actual book, and the cover. 10K plus.
Interesting.
Because the marketing was there, the passion in the video was there, right? The media circuit was there, the social media, it was there, right? So you don't even have to come in there with a full project. That's kind of a
That's just what
comfortability
we
thing,
do.
right? Again, we don't want to play with nobody's money, nothing unexpected to happen. Book's done, here you go, right? But some people are
Right.
able to, hey, this is all I got right now. But with your help, I can
Get more.
and people resonate because again, through that same thing we talked about the social media. Oh, I'm really following on the journey, right?
Mhm.
And if I'm going to put my money where my mouth is, now's the time. Let's see this come to fruition. And now it's like, oh, this couldn't have gotten done without me, and hence why a lot of people do like the thank you pages and stuff like that because it's, oh, I was a part of this, and you're kind of forever immortalized in the success of that, and especially with the thank you pages. That's there, right? So even if that becomes a novelty item, you're there, right? So yeah. Anyway, yeah.
It's a constant learning process, and I'm glad we've been learning more about the business side of things through business cohorts and grants and different kind of programs because it's still learning. So much learning.
It's last thing, I suppose.
Yeah, go ahead.
It's going to be work. What we do even still now is messaging every follower if possible.
Instagram doesn't like that anymore.
But Instagram does not like that anymore.
So
but
we got to about half of them.
We got through about maybe half, but again, it's tedious, right? But being able to sit there and take the time out to message people in your community that either may not have seen it or just haven't heard from you a while or what have you. It's like, man, you messaged me. Hey, how's it going? Right? Like I haven't seen you since DreamCon 2 years ago. What's going on? Oh, we had this going on. Oh, well, I don't even have this. Let me go ahead and back. And you reconnecting, right? Because again, the algorithm, for what it is lately, or just how it continues to evolve, doesn't always work, right? It doesn't always work. And so being able to, again, kind of simulate what you get in your mailing list, but kind of almost on a personal level where, again, it can be tedious, right? But doing those individual messages and personalized messages, if you would, really have helped tremendously. And that would be something that I would try to do early on as well, for sure. Because that would have definitely, that definitely would have helped because our algorithm wasn't too terrible. But again, those personalized messages were key in several of them. So yeah, there we go.
That's true.
No, I think we've covered just about all the different aspects of Kickstarter. Although I'm so sorry, but I just have to ask. You guys mentioned very briefly that when you were doing your very first Kickstarter, that you didn't charge as much as you would now. How do you kind of gauge now how much you're going to actually put as your Kickstarter goal?
So now that we have artists that we know we're going to work with now, like kind of consistent artists, we kind of gauge around how much we know we got to pay them, and
plus how much
add
all your
printing
expenses together first.
Right, add all your expenses together first. Yeah. With the manga, we ended up being able to do a deal with that artist. Well, we were able to do a deal with all of our artists, so a lot of our pricing is now consistent. Now we're, again, with the gray one, we're testing the waters or what have you. Two things then. Yes. Printing plus book, right? But plus we also
needs to be printed out or whatever.
Right. But also what's a easily attainable goal that you can then kind of stretch out, right? Because like again, I think quite a few of ours was like around that 12, 15 marker, right? But we knew at those, but like with Soul, because the marketing was right, we knew we're getting double that, right? But let's put it there so that it'll be like, oh, they funded that so quick. People really mess with this. I need to back it too, right? So then you try to get the I say cautiously, the kind of bandwagon kind of mindset of, oh, this is funding, it's funding quick, a lot of people are flocking to it, I need to get to it too because this could be the next big thing, right? And so that's why I guess initially we stayed in that kind of 15 range, but now it's like, okay, we have a community that likes this one title, right? And then we have more to offer than we did in the past, right? And so
it's also good to have a cushion for just
and then a cushion in case anything
that
happens.
comes up, anything else that has to go out, and so that the business has money in it.
Right. So all of those things have come into account, and again, kind of testing those waters with like this one, right? We've raised it up to 25 to see, right? Test those waters to see what that looks like, and then so on and so forth. It'll probably kind of increase from there. But another thing in regards to Kickstarter, even more than just, I know you asked about the money side of it, but the time frame. We talk frequently, and Lonzo's been a part of these conversations as well, where it's just like we've done the research and realized like the best time frames in regards to dates for your Kickstarter is always that first weekend and the last weekend. So why I got to run it for 30 days, right? It's you're just stressing yourself out for that 30 days. The hard work, honestly, should have been prior to the Kickstarter. I don't need to start 30 days, right? So that's why we do 15 and have been discussing maybe doing 10, so on and so forth, right? So that it's just like we know it's the first 3 days and the last 3 days. Not confident enough to do 6 yet, but like that's what we're gearing towards, because again, like there's this kind of dead air period, right? People going back to work, right? Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, everybody's at home, it's payday, so on and so forth. Monday through Thursday, you're kind of just stuck, right? So again, kind of that mindset of we know when it's hot, so take that into account, and then of course price it accordingly so you can still make those. So anyway, there we go. I felt like I was getting ready to hit my rambling soapbox. I'm sorry.
No, you guys are wonderful. And honestly, you guys answered so many different questions. I feel like this is like a Kickstarter starter guide that you guys just dropped here. So I think that we've covered such a large breadth of what Kickstarter can be. And of course, there's always more to learn. But we'll go ahead and we'll end it right here. But doesn't mean that it's ending for you guys. I want you guys to please reintroduce yourself one more time before we go. Also, plug yourselves. So where you find your social media. Also, plug your project that's on Kickstarter right now. Any books that you got coming out, please.
Okay, for sure. So, of course, we're Lloyd and Natosha with Midnight Comics, and you guys can find us at midnightcomics.org, Midnight X Comics everywhere except for Facebook and YouTube. We're just Midnight Comics. Yeah.
And of course, if you're looking for the Kickstarter project, when you go to midnightcomics.org, there's a banner at the top of the website that says Gray Kickstarter. You click on that, and it'll take you right to Kickstarter.
If you happen to be on our Instagram, though, it's right there in the link in the bio.
And also that.
Awesome. Well, thank you guys so much for you guys' time. Honestly, it's always fun chatting with you guys, but it's also always interesting to pick you guys' brain about a really cool topic such as Kickstarter. But of course, for our audience at home, if you're just now catching this, you can be sure to watch this full clip on our YouTube after Ink and Panels today is done. But for right now, we will BRB, and we'll see you guys